Hello and welcome to the 66th episode of In Our Defense. Hi Abhishek, how are you?
Very well, Dev. How are you doing?
All well. You look a bit harried.
It's been a tough day, and that's the reason why we are recording a little late
Very
in
late
the day
in the
as
day,
well,
actually.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost 7 p.m.
Yeah.
We try to usually do it earlier in the
Earlier
day.
by 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 5 has been.
It's been the standard.
Yeah, the
Every
latest,
Wednesday at
yeah.
5 and a day later our
But with
listeners get
so
the-
much drama happening in Maharashtra, political developments, so just really caught up with so
Yeah.
many things. And I'm sure you've been caught up as well.
Ekdam,
Yeah.
fully. That's what I mean. We were discussing on our group as well.
Yeah.
Is Bari, what do we talk about? Because I think
You know what? I was pretty sure that we have to talk about this, but it's just that I couldn't get time to respond. I mean, it
Right.
might sound that not getting time to respond because there are so many WhatsApp groups that you're part of.
Yeah.
So the ones that you're fixed with something, I knew that I'm going to do this. So I said, "ठीक है, so you can sort of procrastinate
Yeah.
answering what you're going to do. Let's fix things that
Yeah.
are still not done."
Not done exactly. Yeah. So both of us caught up with the political developments in Maharashtra. It's part of our daily day job.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can't really help that. But yeah. So this week we'll talk about something that we referred to last episode, and we talked briefly the episode before that. It's to do with PM Narendra Modi's visit to the US, after which one of the announcements, of the many announcements made, was that India will be going ahead with what was speculated before, a deal to buy the US Predator drone. Actually, I think it's called the Reaper, the one that India is buying. But I think it's a moral difference. It's just
MQ9A Reaper is another version. This is the MQ9B. So the big difference is this has the capability to be armed.
Right.
So India doesn't have a weaponized drones
Weaponized
till
drones,
now.
yeah.
So that's where this will be a huge boost in India's military capabilities to have drones, because till now Indian military establishment, security establishment uses drones only for surveillance. Picking up data, picking up information, recce's. But if drones can do a dual job, do a recce and at the same time strike, that's reaches another level of modern day warfare. And we've seen in current wars, be it Ukraine or so many operations done by the US forces
Yes.
in Afghanistan. And that's what has made the big difference. And we all talk about AI, artificial intelligence in our lives, isn't it? Just before we started recording, there was a mention by Anna about ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So that's our small little drone, isn't it? Of our
Exactly,
lives,
yeah.
weaponized drones. How we use it is, I don't know, that will decide, be it ChatGPT or these kind of drones. So yes, because we don't have the experience of using them. So first part would be to gain that knowledge, which obviously will come when the acquisition happens. But yeah, for me, this is a big acquisition, as big as getting fighter jets,
Yeah.
probably, because it's an acquisition that you don't have till now.
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of a product till now. And everyone talks about when it comes to drones, that famous Al-Zawahiri killing,
Yes.
the Hellfire missile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to be equipped with the Hellfire missiles. But yeah, I mean, when you think those kind of images, Al-Zawahiri standing in a balcony and some bird comes and just kills him.
Yeah.
And no collateral damage.
Yeah.
Nothing else is, even damaged. No lives lost, just the target. Sounds too cool.
Yeah.
So,
And even the top, I'm getting mistaken if I'm not wrong, Iranian or Iraqi general.
Yeah, the general, yeah,
Qasir Soleimani.
Yes.
He was also killed by
that's right,
US military in a drone strike. And I think the Reaper was involved, if I'm not wrong. I think
See,
it's
they don't
speculated, but
give
tell
out,
you
they
exactly.
don't give out details
Yeah.
whether they've used that or not. But yeah, there are a lot of hints that the Predator has been used
Yeah.
in these kind of assaults that the US forces have carried out.
Yeah, and to talk about this dual purpose, so I think even with the tracking of Osama bin Laden obviously was taken out by a US Navy SEALs
Yeah,
team.
it was an operation
carried
of
by
the
actual
forces,
people.
yeah.
But I think the Predator drone was involved in tracking the courier that used to visit that home in
yes,
Abbottabad
that's right,
and
yeah.
make.
So
and
again,
making
surveillance
connections.
helped you, but we are talking surveillance leading to an assault.
Assault, yes.
So that's definitely a big boost, I would say.
Yeah.
It won't happen overnight,
Of course.
but when it happens,
Yeah. it'll happen.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that for you, this is as big as, a deal for fighter jets. And that's kind of the impression I've been getting from many defense journalists and people who follow the world of defense. And also, ironically, the opposition, because they've launched a similar attack on the government over the pricing of the drone deal like they did with the Rafale fighter jet deal. But before we come to that, I just want to briefly do a small tangent to what you just said right now of that it won't happen overnight. So I was reading up about the process of how this will go about, how India will go about buying this drone. It's quite laborious. So before PM's visit, the Defense Acquisition Council apparently had to clear what's known as something known as acceptance of necessity. If my listeners and viewers will forgive me for this very crude example, this is like, if I want to buy a car, my parents and let's say my CAs sort of have a council, and then they first of all have to clear कि अच्छा okay ठीक है, we accept that you need a car, and then they set up sort of then they give a letter to the dealer कि okay, we want to buy a car. The dealer then comes back with some price quote, and then you have a panel going to the dealer and having a negotiation done, and then it comes back to the council and it's cleared by them, etc. etc. It's quite laborious. Honestly, when I was reading up about this, I felt this could be made simpler. Do you agree?
In this case, it will be made simpler because it's not going to be a long-drawn kind of a deal. It's similar to how Rafales were bought.
Right.
Sort of government to government. So there's no bidding. So if there's no bidding...
There's no competition. There's no trials, etc.
And that's the reason why opposition is, making similar allegations like they did. Even though I feel it's a bit of a self-goal at this point of time, frankly.
I mean, Rafale was as well, if you saw the results after elections held after that.
See, it's very difficult to bring out any wrongdoing, establish a wrongdoing. You can bring out, you can highlight it, but how do you establish it? Because there are no middlemen, supposedly. The very term government to government deal, that two governments are deciding to get this deal done. So the only allegation that you can make is that about overpricing, which again they've done. Now the government has come out with a huge response. It was all off the record, but it was a pretty big docket that was shared. And they have dealt with the pricing issue that, it's cheaper than what they have sold to the other countries. And they've said that it's still at a the price.
It's not a final price yet anyway. This is just what the US is kind of offering.
Price has been negotiated.
This is what
we will negotiate. And it all depends on what price they give us what. So it would be speculative to sort of pinpoint and say that what we are going to buy is going to be overpriced.
Yeah.
What if it comes with some weapons?
Exactly.
What if it comes with some other new age technology?
Or some India-specific modifications that no one has, like Rafale.
I'm sure there will be something because that's what your needs are. So at this point of time, it sounds a little premature to make those kind of allegations. From an opposition point of view, one can argue that why should we wait for overpriced stuff to be bought? But that's a political take on it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, the opposition is within their rights to raise whatever objections they have, and because those are political objections, I would say, and then if it backfires politically, they take
the blame.
the problems that come with it.
Yeah, and there's no escaping it considering this is an election year. Not this per se, but it's the start of an election year. It's less than a year to go.
We are definitely in election mode, and we will see much more of all this and mudslinging. But since we don't discuss politics here, let's not go on and on.
Yes, exactly. Let's not.
It will just get diverted, isn't it?
Yeah. But, I'll still take up the point of what the opposition said and, kind of segue. And I think this will give you an opportunity to exactly tell our listeners and viewers what and why exactly this drone is so special. Is something that you mentioned just at the beginning of your answer, that there is no bidding involved over here. But in the case of Rafale fighter jets, that makes sense because you have at least 2-3 countries and their companies having high-tech 5th generation aircraft, fighter jets. In the case of armed drones, is there a competition for the Predator? Is there any other country in the world?
There could be a competition, but again, there are very few.
But
There are Turkish drones,
Okay.
which of course we don't want to buy for several reasons. So these kind of tactical, operational things come in. We're not in the best relations with Turkey, especially military relations. I mean, why would you want to buy Turkish drones? This is something. So this is what nuance is, isn't it? What are the options? What are the choices that you have?
Exactly my point.
So there might be options, but are they really
an option for you?
An option? And the other is, there's a lot of geopolitics involved in it, strategic interests. Suddenly, US is all out to prove to you that this is a strategic partnership. The term strategic partnership was used several times by both the presidents when Prime Minister Modi was there. So what is a strategic partnership? Strategic partnership is something that goes beyond a buyer-seller, export-import kind of relationship. It's saying much more than the fact that we're just selling and buying. So that's why the term strategic partnership. And it might not be restricted just to military hardware. It could go on to other spheres as well. For example, space collaboration, space program collaboration.
Yes, the Artemis collaboration.
Which has been announced. That is of immense strategic importance. So when the two countries have sort of come on this platform and decided that this is a strategic partnership, then you will have these kind of deals. Otherwise, how do you establish that it is a strategic partnership? And also, back to politics, we don't want to discuss politics, but you can't completely ignore it after these are political leaders who had met. These are not whatever is being discussed in this deal or in this visit, whatever are the key takeaways. It's not about Biden and Narendra Modi. You set a template for future political leaderships as well by doing what you're doing today. There was a template set with Russia many years back, and it had a vision. That's why it continued for so many years. In fact, it's still continuing. You can't completely put it out of the picture. So, and we are at a very crucial juncture where, because of the Russia-Ukraine war, there definitely is a pressure that if this continues, what happens to our spare parts, several other military hardware.
We've discussed this several times on this.
It might have not made a big impact by now, but you need to audit, and that auditing is happening.
Yeah.
So you need to think of other options, alternatives, and this is not a spare part anyway. I mean, this is a huge acquisition, as we've discussed. So lots of planning being done around it already. So this is going to be a tri-service asset. So that in itself shows that you are the kind of tweakings that you're doing to your existing military structure. Your acquisitions are also being done, keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
So this is how reforms begin.
Yeah.
It cannot be restricted just to formations. There has to be a reform in your head as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That only if you think of reforms, first you put them on paper, but then you have to decide how it will be done practically on the ground. So 31 drones, 16 for the Navy, 15 for the Navy, 8 each for Air Force and the Army.
Yeah. So now let's get into this drone itself. Over the years, when I've always read about high-tech drones, the name Predator has always come up. I'll be honest, I don't really know about the capabilities of this drone very much. But you say Predator and I just instantly know what you're talking about. So this name has been there. It's, on the internet, in media reports, it comes up quite often. And you just have this just vivid imagery of this, you can I can imagine the drone right now. I know how it looks and, it flying high in the air.
And anybody who's interested in knowing exact capabilities, it's all there in public domain. We don't even need to sort of discuss that, because that's something that our viewers, our listeners would would be able to find out very easily.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's not just about the capabilities. It's about how Indian security establishment is looking to sort of bring in many changes just with this acquisition. And I think that's the big takeaway as well of this acquisition when it happens.
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about. So tell us now what gets you so excited about this deal, because I've been sensing it for 3 episodes now. I think the week before PM Modi went to the US, you talked to me about off the camera, off the mics, this is something that's going to huge happen, we should talk about it. And like you said, this week itself, even though we were so caught up, you had it in mind, ki ab to mujhe discuss karna hi hai, ho gaya hai. So what is it about this deal? What is it about this drone that gets you so excited?
Yeah, let's just think of the kind of operations, combat operations that our military security establishment does. And you will start getting a clear picture, you will get answers. Our maximum casualties happen because the terrain is tough, dense jungles, either counter-terror operations. LOC has been silent for the last 2.5 years. We've discussed that as well. But there's no guarantee that it will remain silent. There used to be huge infiltrations, terror camps. What if you could carry out a surgical strike without your soldiers actually going in? I mean, it's a simple explanation.
Yeah.
It's a very simple explanation. Your reach of surveillance enhances big time if all 3 services are using it. Currently, the Indian Navy has two of these Predators on lease.
Okay.
Which are being used only for surveillance.
Okay. They aren't armed.
They aren't armed.
Okay.
So from the deep oceans to Arunachal and Ladakh, just these 2 drones have given you a lot of advantage, a lot of information.
Okay.
Just 2. Here we are talking 31, which are armed. So the armed part brings a deterrent. Not that the adversary doesn't have capability to probably bring down these drones. Aisa kuch nahi. I mean, they could have capabilities, but they have capabilities to bring down fighter jets as well.
Yes.
Their capabilities to
not missiles, by the way. I mean.
Yeah, I mean everything. So that's not the point. The point is what you have, and why we are so excited, because we didn't have this. No, we had fighter jets. Rafale is good, fine, but we have never had this.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that everybody is excited about it. And to get to know that this is, and Manjeet, our colleague Manjeet Negi, he did a very good report on it, that how the tri-service command aspect is something that is an eye-opener again. If it's a tri-service asset, then it has to be under a tri-service command. So it will be interesting how that will be done. So it's not working in isolation, and that's the kind of vision that the military leadership has right now, and all of that is pretty exciting.
So when you say it will be under a tri-service command, but then you also said that 15 for the Navy, 8 each for the Army and the Air Force. So how does that kind of...
No, so they come with different...
configurations.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
The Sea Guardians are only for maritime
for naval
operations,
purposes. And
for maritime operations. And the other one is for... The Sky Guardian is for the Army or the Air Force to use.
Okay.
But the maritime version, which is called the Sea Guardian, has to be obviously quite different.
Yeah.
But the Sea Guardian is doubling up for other purposes also.
Oh.
So right now, the 2 on lease
two on lease, yeah. Interesting side note over here that 15 are the Sea Guardians.
Yes.
And I think this kind of harks back to one of our previous episodes, I think 6-7 episodes ago, when we talked about Navy's slowly emerging importance in acquisitions.
And don't forget that you have 2 coasts. So if you want these to be your eyes and striking capabilities, or whatever term you want to use it, to be deployed on both the coasts, then of course the numbers need to be higher.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. We'll come back to this just after a quick break.
That has, like, Wagner has, already shown the weakness of Putin's grip.
But what was the weakness, Anna? It was about an insurrection that could have happened anywhere. A rebellion could take place in a camp in one battalion of the Russian army as well. Look at it the other way around, because I know there would be a lot of writing on how this shows the weakness and friction within. Prigozhin was demanding the ouster of Defense Minister Shoigu. If Putin would have agreed to that, that would have been politically damaging for Putin, rather than taking on Prigozhin himself. Because what was Prigozhin? It's interesting that even when President Putin was addressing and talking about how there is this armed rebellion, so on and so forth, not once did he actually name Prigozhin. So Putin was also weighing his options on whether Prigozhin will succeed or lose, depending on that, how he will then be engaging Prigozhin. So he didn't name the man at all in his address. But he did call the Wagner group traitors, backstabbing traitors, so on and so forth, right? And after Prigozhin being branded that, although the name was not taken, after Prigozhin being branded that, imagine if the president would have accepted the demand of oustering Sergei Shoigu, rather than taking this Wagner group on and saying that nothing doing. You are not to enter, or there will be strict action. Over here, yes, the Belarusian came to his rescue, and a deal has been struck. But for how long? You think Prigozhin is going to stay on in Belarus for all times to come? No. There is going to be some internal conversation between the Wagner group and Kremlin on how to handle the situation in eastern Ukraine.
For an in-depth analysis of pressing world affairs and geopolitical developments, tune in to Geeta's World. Catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other audio platforms.
Welcome back. Abhishek and I are talking about India's upcoming deal with the US for the Predator drones. I say upcoming because even though there's, like, I'm guessing a handshake agreement right now, sort of between the two leaders of the country.
You mean the deal?
The deal, yeah, exactly. How, at what price, and in what configuration? Does it come armed with
deadlines?
Yeah, does it come down with missiles from the manufacturer, or does India have to buy them separately or manufacture them?
There is also talk of indigenous weapons being used. There is talk.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, do we have, since we don't have armed drones,
then we wouldn't have the capability to,
there's a bit, but there is talk of it.
Yeah. Right. So before we talk a bit more about the deal itself, just one quick thought which I've been wondering since day one. Why 31? Why not 30 or 35 or 32, or like, why not round it off?
So if you look at the division, it's sort of rounded off. 15, 6,
8.
It's 15, 8 and 8. So if you look at the division, that's why it comes to 31. Earlier it was 30. And it was 10 each.
Okay.
So there was again some change in thought that the Navy needs more.
Achha.
So that's why the number has come to 31.
But just for me, it's just one of those, it's like interesting side notes about defense deals, and when just like, like you said, like 10, 10, 10, and then our Navy needs more, so make that 15, so overall becomes 31. So it's just...
that is it was a peculiar question, but that's the only...
but it's a thought in my head, Are
you convinced with the reasoning, logic?
Okay.
Navy needed more, so round off karke 15.
32 would have been too expensive, I guess. Because these are, by the way, quite expensive. I've checked them, even though we don't know what the India price would be. I think if you go by general figures, I think 100 million for one drone is... Yes,
that would...
Because I think even the government response to the opposition was I think Saudi Arabia bought it for 100 million, if I'm not wrong.
No, the government response was what? In Indian rupees was how much? Was it?
I don't remember right now.
800 crore or something?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Yeah, 100 million, something like that, yeah. So, quite expensive. Yeah. So, right. So, tell me, even though you've explained it quite well, but if you were to talk about some of the recent missions or some of the recent operations that the Indian military has carried out, which one would you see in hindsight benefiting the most from a drone like this?
Oh, man. list
All of
could be long. It could be really, really lengthy. Let's go back in time as well. Let's say 6-7 years back, when a lot of these operations were happening. And surgical strike is one that certainly comes to mind. The surgical strike in Myanmar is another one that comes to mind. And every time these shallow raids take place on the LOC, and so many terror hideouts that are there, but it's just, going across, which is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
See, even if you carry out a drone strike just to disrupt your target, that in itself could be, really, really beneficial. Once they move around, then you amplify with soldiers on the ground. So there's obviously a whole lot of difference that these will make. And again, coming back to why Navy needs more and things like that. We are openly talking China now.
Yes, definitely.
Which we've touched upon so many times in our podcast, that the China word, which was sort of brushed under the carpet earlier, has suddenly become part of normal discourse.
Yeah.
Even the government is talking, military leadership is talking. So there is a huge impact that China is making in the waters, in the seas, South China Sea. They come towards the Indian Ocean region. They send their surveillance vessels, as they want to
Whenever
call
we
it.
have some sort of a missile test launch.
Surveillance vessels are against spying missions, things like that.
The submarines also have been spotted.
Yeah, so when you have this kind of capabilities, so you are letting the adversary know that we are prepared. We are watching you as well. So that's what comes to mind straight away. And so many operations in dense forests of Northeast. So this will, of course, be a big thing when it comes to those operations.
Because you were talking waters, just like the thought came to my mind. Can it also strike submarines? Does the missile it carry have power, ability to go underwater?
Not that easy.
Acha.
Yeah, wouldn't be that easy, because anti-submarine warfare
It's a different
is different. Yeah,
Okay.
you have different weapons for it. So I'm not too sure if a drone can see that you have helicopters that come with anti-submarine. So there might not be any particular. It's just the payload that it can take. If it has the configuration, the design to take that kind of a missile, then yeah. So we'll have to wait and watch what kind of
configuration It goes back to that. Right. Let's rewind a little to our earlier to the chat that we had before the break, where you talked about the word strategic partnership that was used very often by President Biden and PM Narendra Modi. What I've read about the whole background to India's... so India has been eyeing the Predator for a while now.
Yeah, this was in the pipeline for a while.
Yeah, for a while, yeah. You also said, you told me that. But the US always has had a history of not wanting to sell its most technologically advanced stuff.
They've always had reservations.
So even with the fighter jet, for example, the one being offered is the F-22 and not the F-35, which is the most advanced. So they have a history that, they'll develop a new one and then they'll sell the older model, which is not the case with the Predator. Again, China, India, whatever. So what do you make of this? Because I think one of the things that happened before PM Modi's visit, some reporting by foreign agencies, I think it was Reuters if I'm not wrong, was that the US is now actually pushing India to come and make sure this deal is done. Even though India's been eyeing it for a while. The US initially reluctant, but now suddenly in the last few months after the Russia-Ukraine war, China's sort of, needling South China Sea and Taiwan, and India's issues with China, etc. The US suddenly wants to be there and tell India, oh, bro, we have this great
I'm
stuff
glad
for
that
you.
we are discussing this, because sometimes in this cheering the big deal, we sort of tend to forget the larger picture, isn't it? So yeah, I'm glad that we've touched upon this. Let nobody feel that there's some favor that's been doled out to India.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? And it's not that, and at the same time, it's not that they've found this newfound love and respect for you.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
exactly.
There are strategic reasons. And forget about these deals. Just notice US's official discourse vis-a-vis India and China. The kind of language that is used, the kind of information that they are putting in their official reports, official Department of Defense reports, Pentagon reports, on not just China, but China at LAC is unprecedented. So this clearly shows that this is a big focus area for them. Every time you have a US diplomat or some big dignitary visiting India, they make sure they talk about China. And not China and South China Sea, Taiwan, China at LAC. So what does that show? That one, they want to sort of cash in on what's happening in LAC, at the LAC, and what China's activities in other places is, because it's quite similar to what they're doing at LAC. And the other is the Russia-Ukraine war. So they definitely see an opportunity there of India sort of shifting from our dependence on Russian military hardware to American military hardware, and also the fact that we bought Rafales. Although we've bought French aircraft before, Dassault aircraft before as well. But they did think, they would have thought that, this is the right moment to sort of woo you and talk of the strategic partnership. Strategic partnerships cannot be one way, isn't it? So now it would be interesting to see that how do we leverage this strategic partnership? We need to make them feel that US can also be dependent on us on something. And I think that's the challenge for the Indian leadership, which might not be military, could be so many other things. We are certainly not very good observers of other aspects of trade or business and things like that. But I think that's the challenge. That if it's strategic partnership, it cannot be one person dictating terms and letting you feel that we are helping you. If it's a partnership, it has to be both ways. And the strategic advantages need to be shared.
Right. So just like, carrying forward on the thought, do you think it's just just a nice coincidence for us that just when the Russia-Ukraine war happened and suddenly we had this big question of a few years down the line, suddenly might your spare parts for a lot of the Russian military hardware that you have might fall short. There you have kind of what you said, but you have suddenly US willing to, give you a lending hand. So do you think it's just a coincidence, or do you think it has been done keeping exactly that in mind, and which is why you say India also needs to...
It's not just this. India-US military cooperation started to see a churn back in 2008.
Okay.
So it's not something that's happened overnight and this is the only reason. So, and 2008, why it happened was, it was an immediate result of the nuclear deal, the civil nuclear deal that India and US had. And I think that marked a change in the relationship per se. There was more trust from the Americans towards towards India. And also the manner in which that deal was done. Manmohan Singh government could have collapsed. The left withdrew.
Of course,
there was a lot of drama. I don't know.
I remember the parliament scenes. I was watching the parliament.
Yeah. So, and Manmohan Singh was adamant. I'm using the term adamant. And as a young journalist, I felt that is this actually going to work? In India, governments can actually fall.
Yeah.
And it was a government of alliance of so many parties.
So many parties, yeah.
The government managed both. left withdrew support. The deal happened. The government did not fall. It's important to talk about that when we are talking about the big Indo-US relations today. So the big change began to happen since 2008. And there have been some big ticket acquisitions. The M777 artillery guns, Chinook helicopters, Apache armed helicopters. Chinook, we already have seen how crucial they were just recently again during the Ladakh crisis, carrying loads of material to high peaks, several sorties in a day, carrying the M777. I mean, what else? What better endorsement of the kind of cooperation? So it's not that Indo-US cooperation hinges on this deal. I think that change had already begun. The 6-hour rifles is another one.
And maybe even the Boeing transport jets, I think, was that also after that?
Yeah.
Because I think they're the workhorse of
the
Indian
C-17.
Air Force. C-17, Globemaster.
Globemaster.
Yeah.
So it has happened. And I don't have the correct figures, but from 2008, when your military acquisitions was nearly zero, it has gone up, just spiraled up.
With respect to the US.
Yeah, with respect to the US. So, I mean, we've just listed out so many big platforms that we have bought in the last few years. So it's not that this is the only thing and it's only China. It was changing. And now you have a geopolitical scenario where the US is feeling that it's not just a buyer-seller relationship. What I said earlier.
Yeah, right. Couple of more points on the drone, of the Predator drone. Does China have an armed drone of its own? It does.
Yeah. I don't know what they are called.
Hard. I mean, with Chinese, I mean, you don't normally know. But so, jitna bhi you've read about it, how does it compare to the US Predator?
See, I don't know. They've not used it. I have not heard of the Chinese using armed drones.
Actually, yeah. Even
so I've frankly not come across many reports. So the US drones and the Turkish drones, armed drones, are the ones that have been spoken most about. The Turkish Bayraktar drones, we've heard about it during the Ukraine war, how Ukraine has used them effectively against the Russian forces.
Yes.
In fact, the Ukrainians, I don't know, they've used some really sophisticated armed drones like the Bayraktar and some really elementary, rudimentary kind of drones in this war. So the US has obviously used in Afghanistan extensively.
Yes.
Several kinds of armed drones. They've used bombers as well. I mean, we've seen the use of drones by the US and these Turkish drones most in recent time, I think.
What about Israel? Because even Israel is not using drones. But do they use US drones or do they have their own?
They should be having their own. They certainly have Heron, which we use as well, which we use for surveillance. I'm sure they would be having some kind of armed version of drones as well. Yeah.
Right. Let's end this by talking about the deal again, which is not the deal has not happened. So what happens now? Like you said, this is a piece of equipment that we do not have in any form, an armed drone.
Yeah.
We have drones. Like you kind of give an example. Like we've always had fighter jets. It was just a matter of upgrading to the latest and newest technology. This is a piece of technology that we've never had. Now, even though there's no bidding, there's no competition involved, but now I'm guessing you'll have a sort of a group of military and civilian officers getting together and negotiating with the US the price, and more crucially of exactly what drone you'll be getting in what configuration with what
are our needs.
What are our needs exactly, and whether we want some modifications. With Rafale, for example, we needed some modifications. So how do you see this whole thing happening, considering the fact that we don't have experience even operating such drones? So how does that go? Like how do these negotiations happen? Forget the price part. Don't want to go into that controversy. That's like you said, government to government. That's something we'll know later. But when it comes to the technical aspects of missile chahiye, nahi chahiye, kaun sa chahiye, what other capabilities that you want, etc., etc. How do we go about negotiating that? How does that happen?
No, I mean we need to put across what our requirements are. I mean that's the most important and elementary stage of any kind of acquisition. And once you do that, they'll try to meet your requirements, and it will the negotiation will completely depend on that. That's what happened with Rafale. It was the India-specific enhancements which I think government did not even reveal in Parliament.
Yeah, they did not.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Stating that if you give details of these
National security will.
then it's so. And I think this was in context of giving a breakup of costs.
Exactly
and
what
things
cost
like
what,
that,
like
isn't
the
it?
plane aircraft, and then this
Yeah,
cost that much, this cost that much. Yeah.
So I think once again a similar kind of a script is being written. So yeah, it all boils down to your requirements and how you intend to use what, when. I mean that's the most important aspect of the negotiations.
Right. So with deals like these, how does it normally go? I mean, so, if you have certain requirements based on our location or on the map, our terrain, the kind of, like you said, the kind of missions, the kind of operations that our military carries out, does the manufacturer then also sometimes need to or have to develop something new to meet your requirements? Or
Maybe not new, but maybe tweak it.
Tweak it, okay.
Maybe. I mean, I really don't know. As far as technology is concerned, we obviously have a very, very superficial idea. But let's use the example of the kind of drones, the Predator drones that have been used in Afghanistan. And the kind of drones that we would need to carry out operations in Northeast.
Yeah.
Completely different terrains.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because that's just
Completely
like
different
flat
terrains.
desert land, and this is mountainous, hilly region. Yeah.
So maybe for Ladakh, we can use what were used in Afghanistan. And that's where the challenge comes for every Indian military operations. That there is a Ladakh, there is an Arunachal, there is the LOC, which Kashmir, the mountains of Kashmir.
And the deserts of Rajasthan
The
and
deserts
Gujarat.
of Rajasthan, the low-lying areas of Northeast, again, dense forests. So this is largely a lay of the land, isn't it? So there's so many. Why do we have these helicopter crashes? It's because of this dense forest, weather, and we would want our drones to withstand all of that. Imagine a drone coming down because of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost is huge. So that's the challenge, I think, when it comes to design and configurations.
Final thought. What does this deal, the importance that's been given to it by India, like you said, we've been eyeing this for a while, what we've seen in the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine's use of drones, and I think there was also a recent viral video of a Russian jet dumping fuel onto a US drone, if I'm not wrong.
During something happened.
Something had happened, something on those lines. I think it happened a couple of months ago. But anyway, so where do you see the future of warfare? Because this is, I think, not a recurring topic on our podcast, but we've, with Russia-Ukraine war, your visit to Israel, where you came back with some pretty cool stuff about cybersecurity, and that's also when we discussed the future of warfare. So we've been I've been reading about how drones will change the future of warfare. There are swarm drones that India has now. This armed drones are now coming in. Where do you see that going 10, 15, 20 years down the line? You know what? Let me just ask you a very point-blank question. Do you see any time in the next few decades fighter jets becoming completely obsolete?
No. See, nothing is obsolete in military warfare. People had given a death warrant to tanks after the Russia-Ukraine war. But do you think tanks will be completely out of action? I don't think so.
We've ended up sending tanks to hills. And
Yeah, I mean, we have tanks in Ladakh.
Yeah.
So I don't, and we are planning lightweight tanks and things like that, keeping in mind challenges there. So I don't think so that a fighter jet will be out of equation. The foot soldier will be out.
Never.
Nothing will be out. You will have new things coming, but you will not have the existing machinery and the existing structures go out when you plan for even your future militaries. All these things you would want them to amplify what you already have. But I don't think nothing is really going to be. These are not horses.
Yeah.
By the way, Indian Army still has mules.
Yes.
Not to fight,
Yeah.
but for logistics,
Yeah.
things like that. So they've been talk about some robotic mules or something like that. It's still not seen light
Still
of
not
the day.
seen, yeah.
So,
And I mean, I think almost every soldier still carries a knife with him. So it's the most rudimentary form of weapon, but you still have it. So I think I'll agree with you over there. I mean, that's the answer I have when someone asks me, considering that I work in a field which involves a lot of writing. What will ChatGPT do to your profession? So we start off with that ChatGPT. We'll kind of end with that as well, because I think drones, automated systems are to the military what software ChatGPT
we
is
want to
to
amplify our this thing, but
Yeah, exactly.
it shouldn't be able to replace us.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting chat, Abhishek. Thanks.
Lovely.
And I could sense your excitement on this topic, and I think you've been able to really lay it out exactly why this is such a big deal, the upcoming India-US drone deal. So you said let's wait and watch a couple of questions ago, so I think we'll have to now wait and watch. The process begins, I think, as we speak.
Yeah.
Sometime this week, I think an official letter will be sent to the US expressing interest.
Now, the US Congress, I don't know if it's already happened. Has it happened?
I know
I'm
it
not
hasn't.
sure.
It hasn't.
Apologies to our listeners and viewers. There has to be some kind of a
Ratification
from there. So. But I get a sense that if something like this is announced at a state
level, then obviously it is a done deal. Yeah.
Visit, then I don't think that the Congress will sort of have any reservations about it. Shouldn't have.
Yeah, right. So I think then it's just what remains is the negotiations. One aspect of which will be price, and the other the technical capabilities of the drone that India wants. And once we know more on that, we'll obviously once again have a chat on this. So thanks Abhishek, and thanks to our listeners and viewers. As always, you can let us know what you thought of this episode or what you think of this podcast in general. Drop us a text at 8588 966 996 or an email at pods@indiatoday.com. That's pods@indiatoday.com. A special thanks to our producer Anna Priyadarshini as always. That's it for this week's Defense Dose. For more, tune in next week. Till then, stay safe and do not cross any boundaries without a passport. Bye bye.